Hey, Casey.
All
Thanks for
right. How you
joining.
doing, man?
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's always cool to, you know, talk to people in different industries and this seems like a pretty fun one.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research on you, and I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I was doing some research and really interesting about your business model. I can't wait to learn more about the cannabis space and what you're doing in it. And
Turn the light
I
on
know
there.
that you were doing a little bit in the family business as well. So I'm going to pick your brain on that because I have a lot of clients who are second generation, and I think your dad started a door business. Is that right?
He did.
Wow.
He ended up my grandpa was pretty big over at Chrysler. He was a two plant manager for them.
Okay.
And my dad was working his way up through that whole thing and ended up getting hit head on by a drunk driver and had
Oh
like
God.
yeah, oh yeah, and had, kind of this crazy experience where he had a vision. He was supposed to start a stained glass company, and
Huh.
out of nowhere, my grandpa's like, "The fuck is wrong with you, man? Like you're rising up the ranks quick at Chrysler, and you're just gonna quit." And so he said, "Yeah," and he started his own thing and ended up meeting my mom, and then getting into the whole custom doors as well as the custom glass,
Wow.
and built it into the business it is today. And
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. It's. I would imagine things are going well right now with the environment, other than perhaps some supply chain problems. But
yep, yeah, we
everybody's spending like crazy on their homes.
definitely, yeah, they're slam banging over there, every day. And I ended up starting an iron door component to that business
Oh, okay.
years ago, and we set up like helped set up a manufacturing type organization over in China, and worked out the CAD program back and forth was the thing I was in charge of. And now we get whole containers of custom iron doors in every couple of weeks. Oh, it
Wow.
was every couple of weeks, but
I
right
was
now
gonna
it's
say.
yeah, it's no, there's definite supply chain issues. I mean, we were paying 12,000 per container, and then went to like 16. Then it went to like a bidding system basically, where they were saying we have spots on this container ship, and
Wow.
who wants it, and everybody's like, our brokers, my customs house broker, going back and forth, he's like, well, now it's 18, now it's 22. I'm like, just fucking whatever it is, like, pay them, and then just tell me after the fact. Like, don't call me getting approval for every one of these things. um, so it's been a struggle over in that regard. I'm hearing from my dad, but they're still making it happen.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I remember. I before I did this, I had a manufacturing company. I was in the machining business.
Really?
Had a lot of clients in Farmington Hills, Sterling Heights, that type of thing. Anything non-automotive is what my specialty was. So, anybody that wasn't making automotive parts in the Detroit area, I was doing some stuff for.
Cool.
But I mean, back in the day, they were hoarding scrap metal, and
Yep.
so the brass prices were, similar to what's going on with the freight right now, where a quote was good for 24 hours if you were lucky,
Yep.
because those and it was really difficult to do business because you'd quote a $200,000 job, and they tried to place it the day later, and I'm like, sorry, it's 250 now. So,
Exactly.
and then they get mad at you, and I'm like, I didn't do anything. So
Right.
uh,
No, it's
I
it's
feel I feel
crazy.
your pain there. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that history, and then go into what you're doing now. How you got into this is really interesting. I mean, I read that you were bedridden, paralyzed. Is that right?
Yeah. So after a hard life of playing very competitive ice hockey and riding motorcycles around and dirt bikes and stuff, and a lot of broken bones and whatever, you end up beating your body up. So one day I woke up and I had this pinched nerve in my neck, and I didn't know what a pinched nerve was generated from at that point. And that's where you've got like your vertebrae have compressed and presses out on your disc, and the disc was like impinging the nerve down my arm, and like I was having like basically a dead arm. It was really,
Wow.
it sucked. So my doctor said, you should go to a chiropractor. They can probably, like, if it's something like that, maybe you're just out of alignment, they can fix you. So I went to this chiropractor. First time I've ever gone to a chiropractor, and he does one of those quick like jerking motions with my neck, and it exploded the disc that was bulging because he didn't do an X-ray.
That's a rough
Um,
day for that guy.
oh man. Well, I didn't end up suing the guy because I knew him, and you know would have been a whole thing.
Wow.
Here, oh, there you go. Sorry, I had somebody called me and it like blanked out your number.
That's all right.
So yeah, I was very, very hurt at that moment. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a slip disc or anything like that, but
I've had some back pain, but nothing to that extent. I mean, I had a friend that had the pinched nerve in the neck that could have led to paralysis. So
yeah,
it's
well,
serious stuff.
That, like, when you slip a disc or something, you get that like zinger, that like shocks you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine living like that, like every single second, unending for
awful.
months, dude. It was hardcore. So, I knew because of an experience back in my 20s when I had cracked some vertebrae in my back, that you can't take narcotic painkillers for months and then not withdraw when you stop taking them. So I was never going to do that again. And,
it's interesting because whenever I hear back pain, it's almost in my world synonymous with addiction.
yeah,
Most of my friends that had major back pain got addicted to what they were on, and that caused a whole lot of. So you're absolutely right.
totally. And, I already went down that road and had to go through a withdrawal, situation, which I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. I mean, and, you just feel like you're going crazy, and it's the most horrific thing. I can understand why people don't want to go through it and get off of drugs. They'll just rather keep taking the drug.
Yeah.
And, but, I'm a great hockey player that, is hard headed. So I powered through that. Right. And then, I had to fix myself basically. So I hired some guys that were, heavy in the cannabis extraction world. And, they won some cannabis cups and stuff like that for their extracts. And I knew them from right around town. And, I told them, I'll build you guys the lab and I'll put all this money up. Like, if you guys can, give me back these individual cannabinoids, because all I could do was research. I'm laying in bed.
Oh, sure.
And they've got this research out there, like, what's the best anti-inflammatory? That was the first thing I researched, and it's like CBD. So I really got into learning about your endocannabinoid system and how it regulates all the other systems, and just all the science behind it, because I had nothing but time to just research. And I really dove in hard. So then I was directing these guys to give me these individual cannabinoids, and I was taking them in huge doses. I mean, thousands of milligrams at a time, just to see what the real effect of these things were. Like, because we have biotage, and it can like isolate cannabinoids basically.
Okay.
So, I started making formulas for myself, and it started working, after a few months. And then eventually it took about 6 months, but I ended up getting better to the point where I was able to go back to work and really kind of like set up, Total Health companies as like a real business, and work on the website. Because I had all this data now from all like these white papers I had read on cannabinoid research. And so I figured I would just, really go that route and try educating the public, as well as went about building the brand out and like setting up manufacturing and being able to fill, whatever size order we were going to encounter, and, working out our formulas for all of our products. And, that's kind of when it all took off. But it's crazy because the first day back to work, dude, this was nuts. So I ended up having to get a prosthetic disc put in my spine. I had spinal surgery. And it was because my very first day back to work, I had to go get a door from the port in Chicago that was coming in. It was a Friday. And our first order for Toll Brothers was on the Monday. And they were like opening a whole subdivision that they didn't have the door for because we were late with the door coming in. So I go get this thing, and these guys at the port, like, we're going to drop this, couple 100-pound iron door frame off the back of the truck. And like, I saw it all kind of happening in slow motion, and I run up to grab this thing, and it just, because I'd been laying in bed for 6 months, so I had no muscle. And that, like, even though I thought I was going to be able to like catch this thing, because historically I could have done that, like, now it just, dude, it crumpled me to the ground.
Oh man.
Broke the disc that I just like laid in bed preparing for 6 months, just got shattered into nothing. And I ended up like, thinking I was going to have to medevac helicopter myself out of there. But then I'm like, all this is for nothing now. If I take a helicopter out of here, there's somebody still not going to come get this truck, and we're going to be late.
Door's still there.
Yeah. So I hop in the truck and I start driving back, dude. And it's like, I was like floating above my body. I was in next level pain. It was incredible. But thank goodness I have a my brother-in-law is very, very with it around town, let's say that, and they're on the boards of the hospitals and stuff like that. So I called him for a legit favor and said I need to get surgery, and ideally like this Moby C disc that isn't a fusion, because I want to like do stuff the rest of my life. And he said, I'll call my dad, and then his dad called me back about 5 minutes later and said, come to McLaren, and I will have the people here to help you when you get here. So like I get back, it's like 11 o'clock at night. My wife, gets me into the car, gets me down to McLaren in a wheelchair, dude, and I get wheeled into this room. And there's like the two surgeons that could even do a surgery like this, both standing there, head of neurosurgery, head of this, head of that. And, they're like visibly pissed off to be there, right? Like who the fuck is this kid? Why are we here on a Friday night? And they're like, my brother-in-law's dad just goes, fix them. And they just started fixing me, and I ended up having surgery the next day, and getting this prosthetic disc put in. But I went through that entire process with just using cannabinoids.
Wow.
So, I know for a fact that they work because I still take them every day. Like they were picking pieces out of my spinal cord of this disc. Like they told me before I even went in, they're like, this is 50-50, man. Like we don't give a shit who your family is. This is, you could easily die or wake up paralyzed or, like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, man, I'm already done. I was in so much pain. Like I couldn't have lived much longer, honestly.
Wow. That's quite the story.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
That was in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so, from there, like, once I woke up from the surgery, and I made a deal with God before I went in, I just said, man, if this is the thing I'm meant to be doing, and you fix me and give me life back, like I'm going to hammer and not stop. And, I woke up and it was broken bone pain, and I can separate that, like you can live with that. And, they told me that, everything went well with the surgery, and, you can hammer. They're like, you can get back to being strong again. And they said, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill you now. And I was like, all right. And I left like 3 hours after the surgery. I was skating, coaching my son's hockey team within 6 days of that surgery.
Wow.
And back skating with my team, which they were like, that's a terrible idea.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, he's probably still playing hockey, because I would still play ball.
Dude, I did, and I've been playing hockey for like the last 3 years, but this year, honestly, just with everything I got going on right now and like everything I'm on the line for, I took the year off of hockey just because I cannot take a chance on getting hurt right now.
Yeah. Sometimes that the priorities trump, but it's hard to walk away if the sport's in your blood.
Yeah,
so I totally understand. Well, that's a really cool story. So let's just go on and continue to talk about the building of this business, right? So it's a really interesting space. It's a hot space. Everybody talks about it. As an advisor, clients call me on a regular basis. I want to invest in cannabis. I want to invest in cannabis. I want to invest in pot. Okay. And I try to tell them, how did your Netscape stock work out? I mean, think back to 2001. My equation of the industry that you're in is it's the future, but we don't know what horse is going to win the race, right? It's really hard to identify, because once money gets thrown at individuals, that's when their competence really comes into play. There's money going into your industry like crazy,
sure.
But you still have to be an astute person and a good entrepreneur to know how to handle that and the growth and all the aspects to go with that type of industry. So, and then you've got the confusion, right? So you said you were able to read a lot, do a lot of white papers. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of information out there on cannabis and the cannabinoid system and all this stuff you talked about. And I do a lot of research in terms of, stock research and company research. And so, I would imagine that that's a rather difficult space to be in. You've got all of this great knowledge and you want to impart it on your clients, much like I do. But there's so much information out there with the internet. How do you clear that fog and get the clients to understand what's important? Differentiate yourself, so to speak.
Yeah, the information is definitely, it is going to be hard to get people the correct information, and I think a lot of it is going to be experiential for people that are just kind of, experimenting with this stuff for the first time. And I think it's the onus to get people educated is going to be on the manufacturers and the brands and the dispensaries for, educating them on the kind of experience that they want to have. And I think that, we're taking steps to definitely make sure that our clientele is happy with their product and happy with their product experience by, rather than the industry as a whole, let's say, because it went from like a black market where you had all these different growers who are trying to differentiate and they're coming up with strains. Well, White Widow, Blue Dream, like Gorilla Glue, that shit doesn't tell anything to the client about what it's going to do to them, in the end. So we wanted to take it a little more targeted. And since I kind of already came from the space where I was individualizing cannabinoids and then, formulating things that kind of like we just found out from anecdotal data, and then the research that's already out there, and then kind of started from there. But almost everything that we've learned has been because we just made stuff up and gave it to a bunch of people and then got a consensus of like, this was the feeling that it generated. So then we kind of reverse engineered it from there. Like, okay, well, this particular strain of something made every single person fall asleep. Well, what was the common denominator between what was in this strain, and work backwards, like, okay, well, it was a bunch of CBN. So we isolate CBN and then, we put it in something and everybody falls asleep, like a narcoleptic. And it's like, oh shit, well, CBN definitely works for sleep, and then we got to figure out what we could put with it to make it not only put people to sleep, but keep people asleep, so it's kind of a wild space right now, because typically with like drugs, let's say pharmaceutical drugs, when those come out, you got 10 years of data typically behind it of, here's the dosage you need to take, and this is what the side effects could possibly be, and here's what the, effect should be, kind of thing. But really, we're on the cutting edge of that because there's new strains being generated all the time, and people that are, you put these things out onto the market and they have wildly different effects with different people because everybody's body physiology is way different, so there's a couple companies that are doing some smart marketing and research where they're taking people and kind of categorizing them based on their DNA, like into a highly reactive to THC or medium or low reactive to THC, because somebody like me, I mean, I've been taking RSO oil for almost 4 years now on a very regular basis for the constant nerve pain that I have going in my own body, but it keeps it at bay to the point where I can like continue to work, but things like this are like very, very like THC like that. If my wife was to have 2 milligrams of it, she'd be whacked for like 5 hours, and I can take 500 milligrams and still walk around completely normal, so it's just the way that people's bodies react. And I think that there's going to be people that are upset with their result if the manufacturers aren't very responsible in telling them like this should be the expected feeling from this. So I think that's where some of the marketing and what we're doing, where we're marketing it as a sleep formula, we're marketing it as a relaxing like glass of wine type situation after work, or we're marketing it as blown away, like if you want to get super duper high, well, this is going to be the thing that'll get you there, but not everybody wants that,
Yeah.
And to your point of does everybody have the wherewithal to really excel in this industry? I don't know if everybody does, but I think that is more a function of building your team and having a very competent team that's behind you. Because, dude, even as smart as I may think I am, and good at marketing, whatever, like I haven't even been able to pull all this off without a very competent team of guys behind me.
So tell me a little bit about Total Health. What is it? What is your goal? What is your vision for the 5-10 year? Out? Where are you going to take that thing?
Well, Total Health is the CBD end of the business. One Love Labs is the manufacturing and cannabis manufacturing and extraction side of the business, and then we have Inspire Canico, which is going to be our dispensary brand.
So it's a vertical integration.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got topical manufacturing as well as and 4 lines for that. We have a high-speed gummy line, that does 17,000 gummies an hour for our gummy manufacturing. We have some very not so much like super fast, but definitely big batch, type batch mixing for all of our chocolates. And then we've got some very with it extraction guys. I've got 4 that are running 2 shifts. Then we do butane extraction for live resin stuff and diamonds and all that, as well as ethanol extraction for making distillate, and then CO2 extraction for making distillate and running terp runs.
Wow. So you're actually building out the infrastructure to do all of this with the machinery and such. So that's a serious commitment right there.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's really cool.
It took this is like 5 years into this almost now, and almost $4 million probably into that last manufacturing and extraction facility. So it definitely took a lot to build, to get to the point where people had that kind of confidence, in me to take a financial risk and give me that to go.
So how far spread across the country are these facilities? Are they all in centralized location, or are they pretty much all over the place?
All over, right in Michigan. So our
Okay.
CBD extraction is in Auburn Hills, and our cannabis extraction manufacturing is up in Burton. And then we have a couple, like our first dispensary is going to be in Burton right there as well. And then we have an outdoor grow component. Up in the Thumb, and we've got about 80 acres that we're going to be farming there in the spring.
Wow. So the gummy machines and such, are they custom made automated machines for that purpose? So you work with a packaging manufacturer and you tell them what you want to do, and they build it out for you?
Yep. It's a U.S. manufacturer out of Arizona. And I wanted to really build everything, and have everything done in the U.S. that we could with this company. So like our packaging is made here in the U.S. by guys in northern Michigan, as well as our like plastic containers for the gummies are. Now this is a really good part. The guy making the plastic containers is from also Michigan over in Grand Rapids, but he's using a hemp bioplastic that I'm helping supply to the hemp bioplastic manufacturer with the stalks and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. So we have like a sustainable packaging thing, because you can do all kinds of stuff with the hemp. I mean, you make building materials and
it's a whole other industry you can spin off of that.
Totally.
So do you wholesale your stuff, or are you like making it for your own retail outlets?
We do both.
Okay.
So we're B2B, and we also have an online store for the CBD stuff at totalhealthcompanies.com.
Okay.
The One Love Labs product line is going to be sold out of dispensaries all over the state. We can't do interstate commerce with that as of yet because of the federal legality, but our CBD stuff can ship in all 50 states.
Interesting. And so what do you foresee in terms of income profitability, CBD versus the other stuff? How is that going to break down, you think?
I think the big profit is still going to be in the cannabis side for probably another couple of years, just because the federal government, even though they legalized hemp, the FDA still hasn't okayed it for consumption within regular foods, right? So guys like Pepsi and Coke, they want to roll out a CBD beverage, right? But they can't because the FDA is still dragging their feet on it. They said yes in Europe, and it's been used with great success over there, and I know that market's on fire. But over here, it's still lagging behind, unfortunately. But I mean, on the cannabis side, basically, if you make products and they pass testing and they work, like, you'll sell them.
Wow. So, being a finance guy, I've heard a lot of horror stories about how difficult it is for you guys to deal with money coming in. Is that on your more the dispensary side? Like,
I think it used to be a lot harder than it is now. There's quite a few banks that are accepting cannabis money, and a bunch of credit unions that are accepting it. And I'm hearing, just specifically with something that went through, I want to say it went through the House last week. There's new banking laws that are coming online that are going to be basically giving a green light to all the cannabis guys.
Oh, cool. And are you able to get bank financing, or are you still all private money at this point?
Right now, we're still all private. money. There's no bank financing out there that I've seen as of yet. But
Yeah.
the private money has definitely come down in terms of interest rates, and what people are really asking for. Like, they don't need control of your company anymore, put it that way.
Yeah. It's leveled out a little bit, but it's still a very popular space. A lot of people want to get into it. So it's, at least from your perspective, there's probably still a pipeline of money to be had if you needed it. So that's good. You can probably be more discerning than some traditional type of startups. So you can pick your partners a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of partners already that I ended up having to buy out, and it's been an interesting ride, to say the least. Like, you got to keep your head on a swivel in this industry, to say the least.
I'm for sure. So where do you see this going over the next 10 years? What are you looking at 10 years out? Where's this going to go?
Well, we're hoping to expand to another few states here, as the legality within all the states kind of comes online. Since we have a government component with my buddy Justin Danaskis, who he owns Danaskis Consulting and Development. His father was a senator here in Michigan for 20 years, and Justin's been very instrumental in helping set policy in the cannabis space. So we have the ability to write ordinances and ballot initiatives and stuff like that, and kind of affect policy. But just Michigan, it's good to be getting where we are now. But now that we know what we know in terms of the manufacturing end and the retail end and kind of the pricing of flower and how it's all going to shake out, everything kind of goes in waves, right? With we've seen it play out on the West Coast, and kind of all the states that are adopting it thus far. Everything kind of follows this pattern. Well, we feel that now we have the ability to expand into different markets that are kind of coming online in their infancy, and really take advantage of getting good market share within those markets. I think very quickly, based on the things that we already know. So we'll definitely get be a big time MSO within 10 years.
Wow, excellent. So I've got a question from an investment perspective. Everybody's wanting to invest in the cannabis space. What would you, if you can think of one? I'm big on tangential type investments. So derivatives. What industry is really benefiting that nobody's realizing about? One of the things that's been mentioned to me was the packaging industry. The packaging industry is doing quite well because the packaging for that stuff is pretty expensive, and it's done locally. So just curious, what's an under the radar area that's really benefiting from that space that nobody would be aware of, or maybe it's under the radar?
Yeah, I think packaging is definitely one. I think transport and some of the marketing type agencies are definitely feeling the influx of business, because historically now we haven't been able to really advertise, because the advertising laws were way against anything cannabis or anything marijuana or anything like that, and now those things are kind of loosening up. So the advertising guys are starting to really hit it pretty hard. You're seeing billboards and stuff now all over the place. It's starting to kind of, the markets are starting to mature. So
yeah, I see a lot of that. The billboards here in Chicago, it's all over the place. So that's very interesting. So tell me a little, just quickly before we wrap up here. If I'm sold on the CBD oil, right? Like I have a friend who's an epileptic. I've heard it's been good for epilepsy and preventing seizures. But there's so many places to learn. Where do I go to get some real education as to what the best kind is and where to go to get it? And how would I find you guys if I was in the market just trying to find the best source for the CBD oil?
Sure. Well, I mean, we have a whole resource on our site on totalhealthcompanies.com.
Okay.
We built out a cannabinoid 101, which lets people know about the different cannabinoids and how they regulate your endocannabinoid system, like talks all about the system, as well as like the benefits to pets, how it can be used, the different methods of ingestion, and what the timing associated with those things are. So I think that'd be a good place to start.
Okay.
But there's plenty of research out there.
Almost too much, right? That's part of the problem. Is same with investors. Everybody's an expert because there's so much information, but half of it's no good and the rest of it isn't deep enough, right? So
Exactly. Yep. I mean, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam out of Israel has been doing this research for 30 years. That's like, where I got almost all of my initial, research and knowledge came from that guy. So, they've had access to it over there. Over here, not so much, because it was a Schedule 1 drug. So what are these researchers going to do? Go down to the drug dealer on the corner, be like, hey, I need 500 pounds of this stuff to, do a bunch of research on. So
yeah,
I think there's, as the knowledge increases in like the general public, I think that people will start to see that they don't need to take pharmaceutical drugs to get things done. And, that stuff is typically, even if it may be helpful in one regard, it's probably going to be harmful in a few other regards. So, as a general rule, if you can get something done with a natural product, it's probably much better for your body,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm excited that we had a chance to talk. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having
I'm
me.
envious of the excitement that goes around in your business. You're in a really cool space. It's going to be a different thing every day, right? So
it is. It's wild, man. Building all this stuff and running around, trying to make deals on crops and splits and blah blah blah. And every day is start at like 7 a.m. The phone starts ringing, and I probably, I'm sure my wife is not super happy that I miss a lot of dinners these days, but you're out running around, and you got to make hay while the sun shines, and
that's for sure. And you're in the right space for that. So keep up the good work.
Thank
you. And again, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, so thank you again. And let's touch base again and see how things are going in the future. I'm going to check out your website. We'll throw it up on my promotions here, and I think I spent a little time on it. It is very educational. So awesome. I appreciate that, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you having me on.